Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Fly Tying Tuesdays. My name is Max, and today we're going to be tying the Game Changer. So today on the Game Changer, we'll be using two different hooks, or two different sizes of hooks rather. Firehole 811 size 1 for my front hook, and a size 6 in the back as a small stinger hook. Using the articulated fish spine shanks. One's a 10 mil, a 15 mil, a 20 mil, and a 25 mil. I'm going to be using Blaine Chocolate's body wrap in UV white, some Living Eyes in a 7 mil ice color. Be using a Vivus 6/0 in white and some white Schlappen feathers to make my tail, and some thick trailer intruder wire to segment the articulation from the hook to the shanks. Start my thread just behind the eye, working back. I'm only going to work it back to about halfway or about even with the hook point. And I already attached on one of the pieces of the shank. This is the 10 mil. I did that because it is extremely difficult to get on, and once you get some material on there, it makes it even tougher. So it's small enough that it doesn't really get in the way, and it makes tying a little bit easier. So once I get my thread kind of worked up, got a little bit of body on there, go ahead and take two pieces of my Schlappen feathers to make my tail. I kind of got these already trimmed up nice. And I'm just going to lay those down, put some securing wraps, and then I can kind of adjust them and work them a little bit to the angle that I want. Snip that one out. The second one ready to go. Try to tie this one a little more downward angle. Make some loose wraps. Now make some tight securing wraps. So I kind of got my tail in there ready to go. For the body wrap, I halved it for the back part of the fly, and as I kind of work my way up towards the hook, I'll make it a little bit bigger. So I just kind of cut out small strips to start, enough that I can work with. You're gonna trim off a bunch of it at the end, so you can use it pretty sparingly. Tie that in, then bring my thread back up to the top, just behind the eye. I'm just going to make wraps going forward, starting to build that body up. The closer you get the wraps, the fuller the fly will look. And there'll be a lot of articulation on this fly because of all the points that we're locking together. Once I get up to just behind the eye, make a couple wraps and secure that down. Some more tight wraps, and then whip finish. Snip out my thread, and before I take it out, comb it out a little bit, comb it forward. Some of those loose fibers, make it look real full, and then kind of comb it back. So I just started my thread just behind the eye here, starting to close that shank down, working as close to those jaws as I can. Probably only going to get a couple wraps with the body wrap in here. So where you gotta be careful and not put too much pressure so you pop the shank out of the jaws of the vise. I'm just gonna make subtle wraps to the front. And then capture it and tie it off. Not to trap any fibers in there. Pull back my material, make some more wraps, secure it down. Then I'll whip finish. Just like that. It's the one right there. So try to gently whip finish. So you don't pop it out. Another piece to the puzzle. So now I'll take a 15mm shank. Add that in there. Try to make sure this is locked down tight. And I'll start my thread just behind the eye again and work my way back to the vise jaws. Snip out my thread. I'll take my next piece of body wrap, starting to build up a little bit in size. And work that all the way back to the jaws of the vise. Bring my tying thread back up to the front. Make some more wraps going forward. Make another wrap so they're even as I'm working my way up the shank. Just behind the eye, get one more wrap in there. I'll tie that down. Make a couple tight wraps and then whip finish again. Snip out my thread. Same thing, kind of comb those fibers out. And comb them back. Starting to see a little bit of a taper. Once we get in there with the scissors, we'll really be able to taper it down and make it look real realistic. With this particular fly, you can paint it and color it and change it up as much as you want. They got a lot of different color options. They got gray, black, olive, chartreuse. The pearl though is kind of nice because you can color it up, and a lot of fish are white or light gray. Now moving up to a 20 mil shank. Snap that in there. Start my thread just behind the eye again. A little bit of a thread body on there. Little thread dam. Point of attachment. Another piece of body wrap ready. Tie that onto the shank. Work my way back to the jaws. Bring my thread back up to behind the eye. The body wrap's nice because you can be kind of messy with it, because you're going to go back in and clean it up with your scissors and your brush. Go ahead and capture it. Try not to catch any fibers. Some of them out of there. Some wraps just behind the eye, and snip out my body wrap. Some securing wraps and whip finish. Do a little more combing, brushing and combing. So our next shank is the 25 mil, and we're just going to repeat the process that we did before. Start a thread just behind the eye, work it back. We can snip out tag, close this gap down, make a little dam with my thread. Cover up the hook shank with my thread completely, work it as close as I can back to the vise. Then I've got another piece of the body wrap ready to go. I'll tie that in. Make some real tight securing wraps. Bring my thread back up to just behind the eye. Start wrapping it back. Keep teasing back those wraps. Getting them nice and tight. Without putting too much pressure, make sure you don't pop that shank out of the vise. Comb it out a little bit. Make sure all those fibers are going the right direction. Make some securing wraps and trim out the body wrap again. Tease those fibers back. Some More securing wraps. And then whip finish. So now we're done with the articulated shanks. We're going to move to the hook. We're going to take a thread, make some wraps on the hook, and then we're going to get that trailer wire in there and attach it all together, and then work back with the body wrap again. So here's the one at 811 in the fire hole. Thread, working it back to the bend. Snip out my thread. And I like to make sure that the hook shank is kind of completely covered with thread. Give it a nice thread body so that that trailer wire stays in there a little bit better and it's not just straight against the shank of the hook. Piece of trailer wire, start that. Working that all the way back to the bend. Slightly going downward. I'll cover that up real good. Now I can take the other part of my fly here, go up through the eye, bring that through, and I'll make some loose wraps to start it, just to kind of hold it in place. And then we can kind of adjust our gap. And we want it pretty close so that it still can move and swing freely, but so that it doesn't have a lot of gap in between this main body of on the hook going back to the articulated shanks. Trying to make sure it stays on top of the hook there. Give it a nice little thread body. Spin my bobbin to flatten out the thread or untwist it. Makes the cover and wraps a little wider. Covers a little more surface area. Once I feel good with the number of wraps on the hook shank holding that wire in there, I'll take some Zappy Gap and lather it up. Just to make sure nothing comes undone. Once that glue is dried a little bit, make some more cover and wraps on top. Bring my thread all the way to the back, right where that trailer wire is. I'll take my next piece of body wrap, start that just behind the trailer wire, or in front of the trailer wire. And work my thread back about just a little bit past halfway up to the eye. I'm doing that so that I can tie in some either gills or fins on the side, and I just have a piece of grizzly like soft tackle kind of trimmed up and ready to go. So once I get up to that point, I'll tie those in there, but for now we're going back to the wraps. This is just such a thick material, builds up a great body, and it'll keep its shape really well, especially once you trim it up. Bud can pluck out some of those trap fibers. Capture the wrap. Slip my thread through. Get it up in front again. Make some securing wraps. Give it a nice little comb again. So my body wrap, I'm going to leave in there. When I tie in my gills or my fins, kind of start to see the taper of the body there. And now we'll add nice little feathers in there for our fins or gills. Some loose wraps to start it. Then you can kind of adjust them in there. I think these grizzly ones stand out a little bit better than just white. So I'll make a couple of securing wraps with that. Then I'll tie in the other side. And when I'm tying these in, it has a bit of a bend to it, and I'm trying to tie it upside down against the shank so that they flare kind of outward instead of back against the body. Make some loose wraps. I can match it up to the other one. Got my body wrap, tie that back in there. Work that all the way back to the feathers I just tied in. And bring my thread up to just behind the eye. Make sure I don't trap any of those down. And I'll start making wraps going back up to the front. Couple more wraps in there just behind the eye. And I like to leave myself just a little bit of space so I can kind of build up a little bit of a thread head. So make one more, and then I'll capture it. I'll make sure I didn't trap any of those fibers in there with that thread wrap. Pull everything back. Make some tight securing wraps. And trim out the remainder of the body wrap. They're kind of giving it that shape of a fish head. More wraps I put going back. Keep them tight. And then I can lip finish and hit it with a little bit of super glue. Still got some work left to do. Gotta trim it up without trimming out the feathers I put in there, and then add some eyes on there. So make sure you got a good pair of scissors for the trimming.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure you give us a thumbs up and drop a comment down below. For more fly fishing and outdoor related videos, subscribe to the AvidMax YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you out there.